Am I audible? Am I audible? Can you guys hear me? Hmm. Yeah, I should be audible now, I think. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Let's just get right into it. The goal today is to talk about um the goal today is um to talk about prototypes and inheritance in JavaScript, right? It's a common topic that doesn't get so much buzz again in JavaScript space anymore. Boss, good evening. How are you? I hope you are doing fine, and I hope you have been able to submit your projects and Nifemi as well. I hope you were able to complete your project as well. So you guys are free. You are the most free individual in the whole wide world, right? So I'm just gonna quickly, very fast, just introduce you to the concept of prototypes, right? And we can hopefully I think I plan to finish everything today, right? But the goal there is to talk more about the prototypes or the prototypal inheritance nature in JavaScript. That is the goal. Trying to push the idea that the way in which JavaScript works, it has something called prototypes, right? And prototypes allow us to be able to do amazing super stuff with JavaScript. So you probably will see you probably will see me do some new things today, right? So just pay attention and well to maybe always ask questions, and I will be able to answer. For those who are just joining, we're still using JavaScript.info for most of the learnings that we are doing, right? And we are currently on this prototype section here. That is where we are on, right? And the idea of prototypal inheritance actually is a big deal in the world of JavaScript. So it's a programming structure that was built into JavaScript that allow us to manipulate something inside JavaScript called prototypes, allow us to create a parent-child relationship, allow us to create functions that can create objects, right? And it's going to take us into a world or something similar to what you have with your object-oriented programming as well, like that. So every object in JavaScript has a hidden prototype inside of it. Every object in JavaScript has a hidden, and this is the way the thing is, right? So it has this hidden prototype, right? According to what the specification. So every object that you see in JavaScript has that, and it is either null or it is referencing another object. So let's see what we're talking about here. And I think we can all see my screen. I believe everybody should be able to see my screen. Let's see. This is this is me not liking what I have though. Let's see if I can manage what I have my setup. Today my setup is I'm on Windows today, so that's the major big deal here today. So if we declare a particular object, we declare it to be object. And we can say that let's log this object and let us see of this object. So you can see that the object is empty, but you can see this prototype inside, right? That is, by default, that prototype is inside, and the prototype itself is pointing to what? Object, right? And if you open again, it is telling us details about what? This object. And inside that object, you have the constructor, you have all the things that we talked about in the last JavaScript as a property, is prototype of, right? Property enumerable, right? Local string to string, value of, right? That is all the static methods, or majorly most of the methods that is attached to the object prototype. Not one that is attached, that is joined to object in itself. Because if you want to check the one that is joined to object in itself, this is the one that we are dealing with. So you can see that when you open the constructor of object, you can see all these things, right? That is inside, right? Which is the seal that we talked about, the freeze that we talked about, then the sealed, right? And the get properties, get own properties, right? And the get own property, right? Or define property or define properties, right? All those things are inside the constructor of our what? Of our object, right there. So that's not the one that we're talking about. But you were saying that literally this is pointing to object prototype. And inside of the project prototype, we have all this information here. Right. And there is one again that is also very powerful, which is the Dunder Proto. They call it Dunder, right? That is double underscore, right? And we have the get Dunder Proto. That is, it has a getter and it has a setter. We also use this to also create another relationship. So you can see that this Dunder Proto is pointing to another object, which in turn is giving us another list of object prototype, all the details inside the object prototype. So that's the first thing first, right? Anytime you have a object created in JavaScript, everybody has this prototype. So now let's look at, maybe let's create a number, right? And if we create a number to be 5, right? And we can say, let's see, let's not use this approach. This is the literal approach. Let's use let num equals to, use the number constructor to give us 5, which is then going to be pointing at the number object, right? And here we have the number object, and we can do a dir. Can I do a dir of that num? I'm not sure. But I should be able to do a I should be able to do object dot get own properties descriptor. Let's see if this is going to give me let's see if it's going to give me something. Okay, it's pointing towards this. Yeah. Okay. How can I see what numbers have now? Should be a way for me to see number constructor. Let me check the number constructor here. Okay. Sorry, let's use this approach. Let me construct a new number. Let me try to construct a new number, if that's gonna work. Okay, yes. And here we can see that what this is doing is what? This is constructing number. And you can see that what? The first thing is that you can see is that because we constructed a number, then the number one place that thing is inheriting from is what? Is the number constructor, right? And if you want to know more about the number constructor, then you see all the information. So this is first the number prototypes, then it now has access to the number constructor, and then we can see all the details of what we have under the number constructor right there. And that is what prototypes. So that is object inherit from a prototype, right? And if you check this downward again, if we check this downward, this is very interesting. If you check this downward, you would also see that as much as the first prototype they are inheriting from is number, then it's also pointing to another prototype, which is object, right? and in the end it will be pointing to the last thing, which is supposed to be what, null. But the major thing is what, it has this primitive value of what, 5, which is the variable, the value that we declared. So as much as that number that we declared has a value of 5 in the memory, right, but then it also has what, the constructor, right, the prototype inside of it, that is what is holding all the information, and that is what allow us to be able to do all the operations that we can carry out on numbers. And that's the first thing I need you to understand. So anytime you declare a particular thing, right, you will then have access to what, its prototype, and its prototype will then determine what we can do, right? That is, what are the properties that we have access to, what are the methods that we have access to, and what are the things that we can do, right? The functions you can call, or even how to use that thing, right? How to use that thing, right, in itself. So let's just do some coding, and let's see how this looks like in terms of us writing code. Let's declare an object based on what we have on based on what we have here, right? And this is supposed to give us, let's just say this dog eats, and eating is true, right? This is an object, right? And then we want to say we have rabbit, and rabbit jumps, right? Both of them are what? And then we can now say what, rabbit will have what, rabbit, we can say rabbit will have a dunder proto of what, animal. Now what is this saying? If we, it means now that what, rabbit now has a behavior of it, right? Look at this, is just by setting this dunder proto right here, and we are pointing this dunder proto to what, to animal. Then it means that that rabbit that we declared now can now have the ability, or all of the variables that we have here, let's say maybe heat, let's say work, right? And you can say maybe work is a function, right, that the animal can do right there. But you will see that this, what, that rabbit that we declare here, why is it losing focus here? It can also work, right? Anytime you call the rabbit, you can see that here we can see the console.log of what animal work right here, which is what's changing the destiny. Oh, you still remember the way I taught you? Beautiful, right? That is, we have altered, right, the dunder proto. We have adjusted, right, the what, the inner operation of the way rabbit works. So rabbit, not only does rabbit have access to its own variable called jump, but it now has the ability to what, to hit. It has the ability to what, to walk as well, because of this behavior, right? And let's take this into the browser as well, so that we understand what is going on as well, high level, what is going on. Let's take this inside of the browser, control A, right? And I'm taking all of this into my browser, and we can also see all of these as well inside of the browser as well. So you can see the true, right? But the important thing that I need you to really understand is, when you look at rabbit, right? Rabbit tells us that I only have jump inside of me. But the truth is, it now has what, a dunder prototype, that inside of that prototype is inheriting from an object. But that first inheriting has what, ability to eat and ability to work, right? And then it's also now inheriting from the object prototype. So you can see the tree, right, that is being created for us by what, by JavaScript right there, right? The ability to what, to manipulate what, that behavior of the inner operation of what, of rabbit, by setting the dunder prototype to another object, right, works there. So another interesting behavior that is going to also be important for us to also have is that I mean, the prototype chain, you can manipulate the prototype chain in multiple various ways, right? You can manipulate the prototype chain in multiple ways, but the major thing is, like, this dunder proto is not common anymore, and I think that in place of this dunder proto, what you probably would see is, I think there should be mdn, right, .io/js / what, set prototype. Set prototype. There should be set prototype, if I'm correct. Right? There should be set prototype inside of what. So this set prototype, it allows us to set prototypes, right? Which, that is, it allows us to set the internal Dunder proto. So instead of using that underscore proto, Dunder proto, right, double underscore proto, right, we can now use what? We can now use what? Set prototype, right, to manipulate what? That behavior. So how do we do that with set prototype? So I can comment this line out. Come on. I could comment this line out and we can say, why am I losing focus? Please, and I can use this approach. And you can see that by using that same approach, everything still works perfectly fine. Everything works perfectly fine. Are we together? Right? So Dunder proto, right, might not be used anymore, but there is the set prototype that allow us to change what? The ways of operation of what? Of the behavior of rabbit by setting it a parent that will now become the new prototype, right there. And also, the Dunder Proto, the reason why the Dunder Proto is working is because by default, the Dunder Proto has what? A getter and setter, right? Can we remember getters and setters, right? That is, you can get a value or you can either set a value, right? So here we are setting a value, right? You're setting the value of what? The prototype of rabbit to be animal, right there. And you can also what? Ask for the value out, right? Because anytime you say you are looking for rabbit.eat, right, it has to look into the what? The prototype to get the prototype, and that's how it knows that, oh, there is a particular value called what? Rabbit, right? The set prototype is only used with objects. Yes, is only used with any valid objects, not just general objects. You know that almost everything in JavaScript is object, right? That's the idea in JavaScript, that almost technically everything in JavaScript are object, right? Every little thing working inside JavaScript is object, right? So it works with object perfectly, perfectly fine. Okay. Do we understand? Right? Do we understand? Do we understand? Yeah, I feel like it should be something relatable, right? And I think that another thing that we can also do here is that we can now always understand maybe the value of this. I'm not sure whether this is gonna work though, but um this is a big thing in JavaScript. When you see the word this in JavaScript, right, this is always pointing to what? A particular what? Object, right? The particular what? Object that that makes everything happen. That is what this is all about. So here, by the time we are console.logging this, what are we seeing here? So you can see that what this is pointing towards rabbit in this position, right? It's pointing towards rabbit, right? And that's why you can see what there is jump to be true, there is it to be true, and there is walk to be pointing to what? A function, right? So automatically, right, by setting prototype, we have altered the behavior of the word of the this, right? To have switched context to be what? This particular what? Rabbit right here, right there. So that is another interesting thing that we can also do in what? In JavaScript. And the last thing that we probably want to talk about before I jump into something else is that we can use for in loop to iterate over what? We can use the for in loop to iterate over all of the properties that is inside of what? All the properties that is inside of that uh prototype. So you can say what? A for open bracket, right? Open bracket, let what? Let prop, right? In what? In rabbit, right? Equals to this. So it means that, I mean, we don't need most of these, but let's just comment. Let's take out all of this here. So now, okay, I mean, what Copilot is giving us to is fine, right? So you can see that this way now we know all the things. I mean, if you console.log prop first, if you console.log, let's just say prop. If you say prop here, prop. So what are the props that we have? You can see jump. You can see what, because it is 4 in, right? 4 in. So it's going to just, it's not going to be like an array, right? It's just going to what, list out all the properties inside of rabbit. And what are the properties inside of rabbit? Jump, eat, and what, and walk. Those are the things inside of what, rabbit. And also we can now know the original ones that are coming from, that is coming from rabbit in itself. That is, you're checking that what does rabbit, rabbit has own property, and this will now tell us the exact properties that is coming from what, rabbit. And then it can also tell us that what, eat, walk, they are what, not coming from rabbit, they are inherited from another what, another prototype, right? So the 4 in helps us to list everything inside, but we are also able to know which one specifically is coming from maybe rabbit, from the one which is coming from the animal, that is the one that is coming from the parent, or the one that is coming from what, the child that is inheriting some of these properties right there. So that is the beautiful that's the beautiful behavior of what, of prototype. That is the what, either you use the dunder proto or you use the set prototype of, right? We are able to use this to what, to set the prototype of any object in what, in JavaScript. Now another thing that we also want to talk about is that what, there is the dot prototype. There is the dot prototype. So what I mean by the dot prototype is that, let's clear all of this out. How do I explain this dot prototype? So let's assume that under objects, say under objects, right? We can say object dot prototype dot sample. Now when you do something that looks like this and you say sample is equals to 5, you know what we have done here is that anytime somebody creates a new object in this particular word, then you will be able to say what, object dot sample, right? Even though it's an empty object, right? But because we have automatically this year, we have altered the prototype of what, object, right? By setting something inside the prototype, by using what, the set prototype, right? We have changed the behavior. And the interesting thing is, I like to run this on a browser so that you can see again what is really going on, right, in this what, in this code that we are looking at, right? So we have obj. If you ask for obj there, we can see obj, but you can see the first thing that you're going to see, that obj is inheriting from what, object, but inside it has created a property, right? Just like we have the constructor, just like you have everything that the object constructor can do, there is now something called sample colon 5. That is, it has now created something that is a particular value variable called sample that is anchored inside object prototype. That is, just like, you know, when we used set prototype of, set prototype created something new and put it at a prototype level by creating a new prototype chain. But what dot prototype does is that dot prototype allow us to now set a new value that will be inside a particular prototype, right? Set a new value that will be inside what a particular what prototype, right? And most of the time you will see that, say for example, maybe array, there is array dot reverse, there is array dot, all these methods inside of array, right? We can find every one of them, right? If we log this thing here, right, this is the array prototype. So if I want to create my own dot map, right, another function called dot map, and I can now say what Shetimis map, right? Shetimis map, right? I'm able to make this what another function, right, that can do what something for me, and I can just do something that looks like this. So now if I declare a new array, right? If I declare array ARR of scores to be what 10, 19, 12, and 13. Now, what am I saying here is that I can then do what this here, right? And we can ask for what the console.log of what of result right here. Let's see, why is it not called? Right, there is a syntax error in the code that we have. And look at how powerful JavaScript is, right? It's logged everything that we have, the sample, and it still remembered the sample :5 that we had. You can see that the sample :5 that we had is still there, even though we've cleaned the whole sample.5 code, right? But it has not been garbage collected, and that's why the sample :5 is still there powerfully, right, in the result of what our map. That is, it is telling us that, well, any object that I declare here, I'm going to just attach what sample :5 to any object that what any object prototype that I am creating. It will attach what a sample dot what file. So with dot prototype, we are able to manipulate what the behavior of what of not just creating a prototype chain, but you are creating what is property or a value that will be inserted into a particular prototype. So you need to understand the difference between the dunder proto and the set prototype of and dot prototype, manipulating the dot prototype of any constructor, right? That is what will happen. It allows us to what just to create what a function or a parameter that can be what added to the list of the properties and what functions and methods that a particular prototype is able to do. So it's just like we are just giving a object a new power, and the power here is what you are increasing what it can do right there. So again, we can create another one. Maybe you want to create a dot log on every array. So if you do what array dot prototype, right, dot what log, right, that is, this will be what a function that is going to just log every member of inside an array right there. And that's going to do what a console.log. And that's something that we're saying that what this log will only be attached to what any any array that is created. That is any array that is created. So long as that array is inheriting from the array constructor, right, they will always have the dot log method that we can call on them. They will always have the dot log method that we can call on them. And that is what we wanted to talk about on the dot prototype. Do we understand the dot prototype? And are we able to differentiate the use of the dot prototype from the use of the word set prototype or the dunder prototype? That is double_proto, right? That starts with double_proto and then the double underscore right there. Now, I think that's basically all. Is that all I wanted to talk about today? Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Right. It's going to be a very short one, majorly. very, very short one. Okay, so let's just go down to another word. If we want to create a plain object in JavaScript, we can use the object.create, right? We all know that we can use object.create, or you can maybe set another thing that you can set is that let's see, yeah, object.create works to create what. So the Dunder prototype and this, no, that's what I don't want you to mix up, right? The Dunder prototype, the Dunder proto, when I have the Dunder proto, what the Dunder proto does is that the Dunder proto allows me to set a prototype relationship. Right, this Dunder proto allows me to set a prototype relationship. That is, yeah, you are only setting the relationship of parent and what child. That is a prototype chain relationship. But what the dot prototype, and again, for god, I'm not sure whether my mic has spoiled, but I hope my mic has not spoiled. Hello, 1 2 1 2. I hope my mic has not spoiled. I hope I'm audible. Okay, so when we have the exactly, so the array.prototype is what we are just manipulating array. That is, you're just saying array. We are manipulating array's prototype. That's what the dot prototype is doing. But what the Dunder proto or the set prototype, right? The set prototype, prototype of, right? What that does is that the set prototype allow us to what create that parent what child relationship, parent child relationship. That is, I want you to set the prototype of this object A, right? Object A to be what? Array, right? Or to be array, or to be another object in entirely, to be object B, object B. But what we are saying with dot prototype, what dot prototype does is that what dot prototype allow me to only manipulate whatever one I am using. So if I say array dot what dot prototype, so if I say array dot prototype, I can only add whether a function, whether a object to just array. Whereas the Dunder proto above allows me to manipulate the entire what prototype chain structure of that object, right? Either using the Dunder proto or using the set prototype of. And that's the major difference, right, between the two structure that we have. And I mean, I think I'm not sure whether I've talked about everything I'm supposed to talk about. Hmm. So yes, which Bosse referred to as what native prototype. That is some prototypes that are built in right into JavaScript, right? Which you can say that what you have the array, what the array prototype, the object prototype, and when we go to JavaScript inside of the web, we have the HTML element prototype, you have the element prototype, you have the document prototype, right? You have the event prototype, right? You have all those prototypes linked to each other, and they must be connected right down to each other. That's why they are what they are called a prototype. That is, there's a chain, a relationship, and that's what the Dunder proto and the set prototype does. While the dot prototype just permits us to manipulate a particular prototype and add some functions or add some methods and add some values inside of it, such that we can request for that anytime we ever have a need to do that. And let's see, yeah, I think that's it majorly. So before we finish everything I was supposed to talk about today, this is very subtle and it doesn't look so powerful. But when you think about it, it allows us to create magic, right? Those are the things that are used to create all these new frameworks, right? All those things that we get to see, right? Because for React now, React is still using object, right? But what React is doing is that it's creating a prototype, right? Has created a prototype called React. That is, there is now a React object, and the React object must have a particular type, right? And it must be whether it is of type element or whether it is of type component. And that's all that all these new framework are doing. But the major thing that they are doing is what? They are still manipulating the prototype, right? Creating a new prototype or manipulating a prototype. The same thing with your Vue.js framework. What they are all doing is what? They are just creating what? A new object, a new way to manipulate the DOM, right? Just storing the existing information in a new data structure, right? For React, React calls that new data structure fiber, right? That is, fiber is now like a object that has type, that has different things inside, right? That enables it, that will be now transformed back to the element that we will now be using, right? To be able to carry out events, to be able to carry out actions, and all these other things that we're able to carry out. So if you want to become maybe a library engineer, right, somebody who is able to do all this amazing stuff with JavaScript, right, understanding the deep seated behavior of the prototype, right, or set prototype or get prototype off, right, will really come useful a lot for you. Does that make sense? And I think the last thing I want to talk about is what? Constructor functions. Constructor functions. So what are constructor functions? Now, constructor functions is what? A function that we can call using the new word keyword, right? That is, we can use the new keyword to construct a new function, and that function is going to create object for us that we can manipulate, right? So we can say that what, in this situation, we want to create a new constructor of person, right? Person, right? And person must always have what? A name and what? A age. That's what person must always have. And for this to work, what do we need to do? We can do what? A function with capital person. A function with capital person accept name and age, and we say what? It returns what? A dot what? A this dot name. And we can save this result inside P equals to what? Person. And that is what the behavior of what? A constructor function. So we can say the name is what? John what? John Doe, right? While the age is what? 99. And that is what? The creation of a new object, right? And if you console.log p, we are able to now see what? Person. We're able to see person, right? And again, you can still see my 5 there, right? My 5 is still there. It has not been garbage collected at all, right? Yeah, so that is just the idea of what constructor function. And behind the scene, what is the computer doing behind the scene? The computer is creating what? A new what? A object, right? A object, right? That's what the computer is doing behind the scene. Creates an empty object and it returns that empty object, right? So that is what happens behind constructor functions. And it's these constructor functions that will lead us to something called classes in JavaScript. So classes, now we can say person class, right? Person class can now have what? A person class can now have what? This structure. And it can then declare its own constructor, and the constructor must have what? Name and age, right there. And I can duplicate this here, and I can say person PC person class is what? Class, right? And you can see what is this, and the same thing is what is happening right there behind the screen. I don't know if that makes sense, right, to anybody, right? So the constructor functions are just what? Ways for us to create a constructor of our own, because that's the only way JavaScript gives us to be able to create our own constructor as the user. While the what? While the classes is a better syntax, right? That is consistent with other programming language, right? So if we do get the get prototype of person, we will get person. No, yes, but no. Now, no, let's do this here. Now, you don't need to do get prototype of, because what you're going to do here is what? You just need to get the instance. Instance. So the thing there is that what we can now say P is what is instance of person, right? And then we can wrap this with a what? A console.log, right? And that is true. So it is first an instance. Now, if we want to see the prototype, right, that is operating behind the scene here, let's take this into the browser, right, such that it will allow us to see all of the powers that are working behind the scene, right? The instance of here. So let's go into the browser to see if we can what see all of the things that is going on here. So let's do a what a p dot get what did you call it again? That's get prototype of what? No, I think it's supposed to be. Let's see. Let me confirm how to use get prototype again. Let me confirm. Let's just duplicate this tab. So we want to confirm how to use get prototype of, right? So get prototype is statement that returns this. So it is supposed to be right. It's supposed to be object, right? Dot get prototype of what? Of P. Let's see, right? So you can see that the prototype of P is giving us what? A what? A empty object, right? And it is that empty object that is now pointing to what? That, oh, this is now the constructor that constructed me. That is, this is the constructor that constructed me. So object.get prototype of P will not point you to object, will not point you to person directly, but it will point you to the all object that made it possible for us to be able to work. Like it will point us to the what, to the chain, to the structure, right? Because in the end, what is person returning? Every person that is happening is creating an object, right? That is it. Then it will now say, oh, what is the constructor that now constructed that person out? Then it can now say, oh, it is the person constructor that I use. But the person constructor again is only what? It has an empty prototype, right? Because there is no prototype inside of that, right? We're not setting any prototype, right? But it's also inheriting from where? From the main what? Object, right? So you can see the chain there is that what? From the person class that we created now, right? Which is what? Which is, it's not fully a what? Person fully in itself is not a prototype, right? It will become a prototype when we now say person, right? You can now say person dot what? Person dot prototype, and you can now give it what? Something, right? Give it a particular what operation and say, I need you to now have what? Dance. Person can dance, and this person that can dance can become a function that can do what? Amazing dancing. And you can say what? Console dot log dance, dance, right? And we are able to what? To make this happen here. So it means that if we ask for the structure again, right, you can now see that what? Dance is now the official thing that is now inside of what? Of what? Of that prototype, right, that is being returned. And why is dance there, right? You can see that dance is there and there is the constructor. Those are the two things that is inside there. But the major thing is the constructor is pointing to the function that what? That created me, right? The function that created me right there. So I believe that that is that about that today right there. I don't know if anybody has any question. It's a quick one. It's a quick, very short one. Right. So you can see that here is the constructor that is pointing to the what? The person class. right? So person class, it has not fully become, I mean, even if it will have a prototype, it will still be a prototype of object, but the detail of the data inside of that prototype is going to be whatever function that we put inside person class. So long as we don't put anything inside the person class, right, it will not have any special behavior. It will not have any special behavior right there. Yes, thank you so much. I hope you've learned one or two things here, right? I hope you've learned one or two interesting thing right here. It's been an amazing, I mean, less than 1 hour of talking about all these beautiful sweetness of JavaScript. The next thing we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about classes, right? Digging into class. And I think after class, let's see, after class, what else do we have after class? Yes, we can still change the destinies. Yeah, we still have the power to change the destiny of many things. Right there. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is what we're going to be talking about classes. Right. And if you look at it, we have error handling next. We have promises with async and await, generators, modules, and we're almost done with the first section of JavaScript.info. Look at it, man. Like, it's been a long time we have been doing this, right? We're able to what? To do all of these beautiful behaviors. So immediately after this, right, we're going to go to regular expressions. I want to create a workshop on regular expressions. I want to create a workshop on regular expressions. I feel like it is very, very important for us as engineers to know so much about regular expressions. So that is what I'm going to be creating. So we're going to be able to, I think we can take the class of these generators and iterators. We can take it together with modules, right? Because I think I've talked about generators before. And I think I wrote a particular blog post, right, on my website about generators as well. So we can go to application. We can clear the storage. Just clear the site storage, and then we can refresh. If you go to writings, I need to implement a search though on this my blog before everything starts getting out of hand. So I usually have an entry of all the streaming now on my personal website, right? So we now have an entry of all the YouTube videos on my personal website as well. So I'm keeping a copy of all the things I'm also doing as well. And what else? So this is generators here. I talked about generators here. It's less than 10 minutes read, right? If anybody wants to read about generators, yeah. And I think I should be building another website soon, right? I want to build another website, right, with Next.js, Markdown, and I mean that we have a course platform where you can watch me talk about some interesting things, some new things that I plan to create, new content that I plan to create as well. So just watch out. I mean, it's going to be super, exciting, right, to be able to have my own courses where I sort of like can go in deeper to explain things, deeper and clearer, right, for everybody, right there, blessing you with, all the front end stuff, all the JavaScript stuff, all the Node.js stuff, and all the TypeScript stuff, right, that is happening in the web space as much as possible. So for everybody that has joined us today, or for those who are going to be rewatching this, right, you can just give me a subscribe, give me a follow on my social media, on Twitter, right, and yeah, I will see you tomorrow, where I'm also going to be talking about Next.js, and we're going to continue building the project that we are building. So thank you for joining the stream, and have a wonderful night rest, everybody. Thanks for joining Nifemi, right? Thanks for joining Bosse and any other person that is online that I don't personally know. Thank you for joining.